Hi, I'm Paul and this is my channel Lagerting. I teach architecture at the university and part of my job is to introduce Photoshop to the students. I've invited them to send me their files and offered to give them a digital crit. They've been kind enough to let me put this on YouTube to share it with other students and anyone that's interested. Let's get to work. We have a student that sent me a file and I will start with just commenting on the naming of the file. My suggestion when you have files like this is to not name them with the date first, but swap these ones around. Because if you have several files and you start collecting files and let's say this was made 2 days later, of course that's okay. You can always get this one in this order. But if let's say it goes a full month and you work with this in February, maybe 10th of February, suddenly that's sorted on top. So for me, the best naming convention is full year dash month dash date. And the illustration is called Man at Sea. Quite poetic. So this can get my... This is just a code for my name. Okay, that's the first thing. You can also see the size of the image seems quite good. It's big enough to be quite a good resolution, 4000 by 2000, and it's not so big that it's going to be heavy for most modern machines. First, I like to just, by the way, in the bottom corner you will see shortcuts I use. So when I, let's say, copy, you will see a flash of the letters. So it might be a bit easier to see what I'm doing. Also, different shift, control, option, and command. I work on Mac, so just if you see this one and it doesn't make sense for you, just change this for control and it should work on PCs. So yeah, usually I like to start just by looking at the image. Maybe clean up the clutter of my screen and just have a look. So we have a man that's fishing here, and the assignment of form and color in this period is to build a one-to-one figure that the students color with the color palette of their choice and see how this color affects the space that this could represent. And then part of the work further on that is to use this as the base of an illustration in Photoshop. And that's both to learn how to use Photoshop technically, but also to learn to test stuff digitally before you commit to it physically, or even just further develop work you've done physically. So yeah, this composition I think is quite clear. It's a nice way to present the work. It has a clear horizon line here. There's some cliff sides. That architecture, let's say that this is a piece of architecture that this fisherman uses as a pier to prepare for fishing. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think this might be a full image. We also open for use of AI in this work as long as you tell us the prompt. And I talked to the student before getting this file, and I know that this is partly at least generated by AI. So it might become clear when we look into the layers. Yeah, I think generally it's quite a nice, simple illustration. Could be to give some kind of feeling into your illustration, that the kind of use it could be, the kind of light. So I want to try to keep this quite sunny and fresh. I still think we could work on some pieces. It seems a bit disconnected. The architecture seems to be sort of cut out, which it is, but I think it's related to the value structure of the whole image. So I'm going to look into that. Another thing I see is that horizon line is unbroken the whole way. And when you work with perspectives, especially free illustrations like this, where realism isn't necessarily the main objective, I think it could be smart to make use of elements that break the horizon just to make it more clear that this is actually layers of space instead of just image of the sea, an image of a flat mountain, and the image of the cliffside here, and an image of the architecture, and an image of a man. So I think we're going to try to look into a bit of the achieving a bit more depth, and also maybe play a bit with light and shadow, the value structure, and also shadows from the elements onto the surrounding area. I also feel it's a bit empty over here, so I think I want to balance the composition a bit with adding some kind of element out here. There's also a clear purple blue color of the light in the cliffside, and a bit more green blue color of the sea. And this is of course because these are from two different images, and I think we might help the image to be a bit more cohesive if the color palette is a bit closer together. So let's get into it. I can probably close this one. Yeah, let's keep the brushes. I'm working on MacBook Pro M1 Pro, so it's not the fastest and strongest Macs, but it's a quite a decent laptop. I'm using a Logitech MX Master 3 for Mac for a mouse, which is quite good for control and these things. Any mouse, as long as you don't use the trackpad, is totally fine. In addition, I also have a Wacom. What's the name of the Intuos Pro, the medium size. So I have about A5 area to draw on a digital tablet. It's without a screen, so it's just the tablet. I use a combination of the mouse and the pen throughout the testing. And I might forget to tell you what I use at what time, so hopefully it looks logical when I use it. Okay, let's see. So we have several layers here. I want to try to make sure that I make a note of the images, those are the layers that are not visible. This seems to be a fix of the here, making it a bit thinner and maybe adding some shadow. I think that's a good suggestion from the student. There's also probably leftovers from a cliffside or alternative cliffside. Yeah, so when I want to see just one layer, I hold the Option key and press whatever layer I want, and I can turn it on and off. It hides all the other layers. It's a good feature. Yeah, it's been done some work on the sea here. I think that adds to the perspective and the direction and the lighting of the scene. So I enjoy this one. This one is, yeah, either it's the title might hint that this is an image pulled in from the internet. So I guess it's just a generic background image, which is totally fine. Okay, so we can maybe to just tidy up a bit, I'm gonna pull this layer down to the bottom. Call it alternative cliff. I usually in ground. I like to call my background. This is sunshine. It doesn't really matter what you call them as long as you're able to recognize your own words. So this is the building or architecture. There are two adjustment layers. Let's see. Yeah, and they affect all of this. Seems like the curves one isn't doing that much. Yeah, and it's desaturated a bit with the color balance, which is also a good way to try to make the architecture blend a bit more into the color. It seems a bit oversaturated in this image, but I think we will see we might not need it if we just work on the value structure a bit. So let's look into let's look into the value structure first. Firstly, I think I want to break the facade with this sea cliff. So let's see how this behaves I'm not sure what this layer mask is meant to do. It seems to be unnecessary. That's the fun thing about having inexperienced Photoshop users and try to review them without being able to ask. So I would ask the student how this layer was generated, because it seems to be acting a bit funny. I'm not sure how. Give me a second. I don't know. But anyway, seems to be working now. Yeah, is it working here too? Yeah, okay, let's delete that layer. So my point is that I hold shift, sorry, a bit too eager scaling. So yeah, I hold in shift just to be able to stretch it just vertically. And I see that because they've used quite a lot of time to try to find a good proportion for this, I'm gonna undo, and then I'm gonna make a copy, and then let's see, we can probably just make a cliff a bit like this, delete that one, and then in the sea cliff back, oops, I don't like typos in my layer names front. So I've separated these two. I'm going to turn this one back, just see this one. And then one thing that you should try to remember is that you don't really need to be that particular about selections. As long as you follow the edge of whatever you have and it's part of the background. Of course, this depends on the thing how you're going to use it. So what we've done now is separate these two, so I can move this one independently of the other. And to fix this one, there are 100 ways to do this, but what I probably would suggest is to just select it, double click to select, to finish off the selection, go to edit, fill, and then content aware fill here, press enter, and then that's basically what you need. You don't really need anything more because it's in the background. And if we need detail later, I can add it. So let's see. The point of doing all this is that I'm now able to, this is also weird, I don't know why the selection is so big, but I think I can just select this one, select inverse, and then delete. So then I will have just the cliff. It was something here, I don't know what, but something invisible was there. Hold shift, and then you can pull this cliff. And I don't know how dramatic you could do it. It's really, really, really dramatic. Yeah, I think that looks quite good. And then again, this seems a bit too rigid, so I just delete a piece of that cliff. What I've achieved now is that I've broken the horizon, and for me that just makes the whole composition a bit more interesting and also easier to work with. And this light down here just seems to be reflected light, maybe from the yellow inside of this building, for instance, because of the sunshine shining through here. So that's fine. Okay, as I said, the value structure is a bit strange because you have quite dark values here. Let's just, there's a shortcut for this that I don't remember, so I'm just gonna do black and white, the adjustment layer, and press auto, and then I can sort of semi-value structure overview. And what you see is that even the darkest darks are quite light. So I can show you what I would like this one to look like. I want the front cliff to be quite dark. I'm going to use a hue saturation adjustment layer and then hold option in between the layers, so you get this, I don't know if you see this small arrow that shows up when I hover the mouse over the layers, that clips the top layer to the bottom layer, and this small arrow appears. So any change I do to this will only affect the layer underneath or the group underneath and not the other layers. So for instance, I can make it darker, and you see it only makes the front darker. And I think actually you can make it quite a lot darker because I want this to be one of the most dark areas of the image. We can worry about colors and stuff later. I just want to use hue saturation just now, and then I could adjust saturation later, but because that's also part of the whole building depth in a way. Okay, let's do the same with C cliff back. Drop it there, and then you see it loses the clipping function. So again, hold option, press in between. And then of course this one doesn't need to be that dark. It should be quite a lot darker. We could start even with 0, reset it by just double clicking this one or writing 0 there. I think it's a bit too light. I would like to be maybe somewhere here. Yeah, maybe here. I might also actually make it darker here and lighter here because the light shines up here, but we'll see. We can figure that out later. Okay, and because I see the architecture sort of floating behind this cliff, I'm thinking this needs to be further back than this, and this is quite shady and sort of, not shady, foggy, which tells me there is some kind of distance between these two mountainsides. So let's see, we actually need to make the architecture a bit darker too. Where is the architecture? Yeah, it's all the way back here. Again, hold option and drag, and then because I dragged it under the already clipped layers on top, it clips automatically. It's also something to be aware of. Let's see, not -30. Now to adjust this one, I just use the shift and arrow keys up and down, and then it changes the value with 20 for every step up or down. And then you can let go of shift and then adjust just one and one. Yeah, let's see how that looks with color. Not too good. I think this one needs to be darker because if not, this is going to be too light. Let's see, C cliff back, -40. Yeah, Could even be darker. And then we have to work with the light a bit. It almost seems like this floor is meant to sort of go in between these two cliffs. So this part of the wall should be more or less the same value and this as this. If you think of the direction of this cliff, this should more or less be the same direction and also the same amount of light. Maybe even a bit more light on the cliff front here, because this is a flat surface away from the sun. Okay. Then I want to just try to get this wall to seem to be a bit more, what do you call it, in the right layer. So I press, let's see. Okay, L for lasso tool, let's see. Yeah, and that is actually all the way from there to there. Option scroll wheel to zoom quickly in between. And then I can use the scroll wheel to move up and down. Again, this is not super precise stuff. Okay, that seems to have been misaligned a bit, so I'm gonna, if I want to get rid of part of the selection, I just hold Option and start pressing, release Option, and then I can double click to complete the selection. Okay, so now I've made the selection. I want to make sure I'm in the architecture layer, because what I want to do now is just affect this part of the architecture layer. So I use hue saturation a lot. It might not be the best always, but it helps me control both value, color, and saturation, hue and saturation all in one, which is quite useful, especially in these kinds of situations. So you see the mask has now been formed. So I just, when I click a new layer with the selection will be the part that is visible or gets affected. So now I should just affect that part of the wall. So let's turn on all the other layers to see it in the same situation. And then I can, let's see. Oh yeah, we have this little adjustment. Was it here? Yeah, this one I think I'm actually not fully sure what this is. I think we can get rid of this one. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, it's a bit too dark now, but it also looks a bit good because the whole thing seems to be a bit washed out if I don't do it before after. So let's zoom out. Remember to zoom out a lot and then zoom in. Command 0 or Control 0 to zoom to full screen. This is a bit dead now, so I think we have to crank up the saturation a bit. Yeah, because you see all the color is lost. And because this is a painted structure, I don't think you should be worried about having quite a lot of saturation. Yeah. And it also got quite a lot bluer. It's more green when it's not changed. So I think I'm on try to get some of that greenness back by adjusting the hue a bit in this layer. This is why hue and saturation is so useful to use to adjust value, because you could also bring out the color again. Okay. It seems like part of the image is high resolution and part of it is low resolution, and in the back here, and the guy is almost too good. And for me it seems a bit weird that he's standing this direction. So I think I want to flip him so he stands a bit more out to the sea. Command T to transform. Flip horizontal, and then actually I want to turn his back to us. Like that maybe? Or it could also be better to just find another dude. He needs a friend, I think. Fisherman on docks. Images. I don't know if this is take this with a grain of salt. Don't do this if you. This is just for an example. So if you're going to use the images in a professional setting, it might be a good idea to get a paid service. And usually back in the days when I was learning Photoshop, I usually downloaded the image, opened it in Photoshop, cut out the person, and then use that. Now I just have a screenshot program. I basically just grab the screen, grab like this, and make a new piece, and then glue him into this. I don't really care about color space in these kinds of examples because it doesn't really matter. Hot take there. And then usually when things are this clear, it could be possible to just select this person. Yeah, well, not fully, but I can try. The fishing rod didn't come along. So let's see. Hold shift and then you can add to the selection. And I select a bit too much. Shift. My point is that it doesn't really matter to be super precise with these cutouts and stuff when you work on illustrations like this, because in the end of the day, yeah, the other person doesn't look good. I just get rid of him. Fisherman 2. I don't know if I should have him over here. Yeah, looks good. He's on the edge actually. This. And then to get rid of this, start with the multiply. Could be a good start. And again, a rough cutout usually works for this kind of illustrative work. We're not trying to be the new Edvard Munch here. I should probably use my tablets because I could just draw this, but I'm a bit lazy. Yeah, that's a guy over there. I think I'm just gonna make this guy almost black. Let's see, because this looks quite good actually. This person being almost fully black. Another thing I see is that I want to make a bit of a long shadow because the sun is all the way over here. So something like this. Maybe distort would be okay. Yeah. Would that be okay? Yeah, that's okay. Could be a bit shorter too. No, it looks actually better like this. And when the sun is setting, the shadows are usually quite sharp, so it actually looks good like this. I could also blur it a bit, but Fisherman 2 shadow. And then this Doodlinho, where is he? Fisherman 2. What? I think I just deleted the content of that. Actually, never learned the shortcut of show all layers. Let's learn it now. PS show all layers shortcut. Command Option comma. Okay, let's see. Command Option comma. Yeah. Cool. That also turned on the black and white layer, so I'm going to turn that one off. Let's see, Fisherman 1. And I don't know if you see it, but this guy is a smart object. Generally, you don't need to work on smart objects. I usually just work on them as pixel graphics. Makes it a bit easier to just work fluently and not worry too much about, well, anything. I already made hue saturation layer. Let's see. Yeah, and then he can also be multiplied, I think, just to make it a bit easier. Fisherman, flip there, distort, that. Okay, like that. And then get rid of this part of the shadow. And then this one could also be multiply. Actually looks a bit good when it's not fully opaque. There's a line here, I don't know where it comes from. Yeah, it's probably this one. Yeah. Okay. Fisherman 1 shadow. Also be a bit less harsh like this. I don't know, maybe this guy actually should move a bit because they're a bit stacked now. Whoops. I also think his rod is a bit too skinny. I think I might actually borrow the rod from this guy and just add to my other guy. Copy, paste. Oops, auto select. No, this one goes down to Fisherman 1. Then I want to merge this part down to the Fisherman layer, and that shortcut is Command E, but it doesn't work because it's clipped, so I'll unclip him. Command E and clip again. So, and then I can work with this within the layer instead of outside of the layer. Command T, rotate over here, and then maybe rod can be a bit like this. Yeah. Press enter and I make a copy by dragging down, holding Alt, Command T. So, whoops, I cut out some bits of his rod. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I seem to be a bit more sort of on the pier instead of on top of the pier. I just basically made them dark because they have a hard light on the side and we see the back of their sort of their edge. The back of their edge. I think I'm gonna get Nobel Prize in talking soon. This fish is comically small. We might fix that too. So another thing you could do, which is quite efficient, is to put a bit of the light back onto this person. And a good thing about that is that we have a layer here that's a hue saturation adjustment. And what we could do is basically go in with the brush tool with black, make it quite soft. I want to make it a bit, actually make it hard. Could be 11 pixels maybe. And then I'm gonna use my tablet. Boop. Let's see. Okay. And then you could, with black color in the front, you could go in and draw the rim light of the person, because the sun is coming from the back, and it doesn't really work all over because he's too dark. So I'm going to fix that in a bit. Just bear with me for a while. And then to swap between the colors, just press X. And you see in the panel over here, you swap between these ones. So let's make this one 5, and then go back and paint the shadow of the rod back, because that doesn't really get the same amount of light. This looks a bit ugly, but that's okay. X to make it black again, and paint the edge of the pants and the boot, and here too. And try to think of where the light would hit the person that is standing with his back to the light. Could even be a bit more. This part looks good. And I can overdo it a bit more here. Could even be on the side of the rod, that the rod shines a bit. Well, it doesn't shine, but you get my point. It is illuminated. And over here, I think actually I'm going to add a bit. So I just make a new layer over here and then clip it. Oops, clip it to the layer here. Call this rim light. And now, because this one is clipped to the layers below, anything I draw here will not show up, but anything I draw over the figure, whatever pixels are under, will be lit up. And then I'm gonna lower the opacity of this to, let's say, 50. And then I can draw with light on the person. Just follow the edge. And because the layer is clipped, it will only show up wherever there are pixels beneath. It's a very efficient way of just making small adjustments in light. Okay. I don't know, it's quite subtle, but you can see he sort of feels like he's lit from the right side. This is without, this is with. We can do the same with this guy. So rim light, could even just take a copy, select all and delete, because I don't want anything from the layer. I just want the settings. B for brush, and then paint in some rim light here. It seems like this doesn't work that well because he is maybe transparent. No, he's multiplied. Probably have to make this one more like 70. Is it because this one is multiplied? Normal? Yeah, like copy. Yeah, seems to be working a bit better. I'm actually not sure why these ones acted so differently. A bit of light on his hands, maybe even on the shoulder. Yeah. The problem with these things is that, yes, it's not very hard to do, but you do have to know quite a lot about how light works on forms. So I totally see if this is a bit tricky to do if you're a beginner in Photoshop. I can turn on the value like this. Oh, seems to make sense. I still think this one is too light. I actually think the whole thing is too light. So I want to go back to the architecture and make this one darker. Now you see how important it is to make sure you have layers that are named. Sea cliff front, hue saturation. Let's make this one even darker. Could almost be totally black. It seems to be a bit too black now. This works a bit better because you get sort of like a light up here. And we can do the same here. We can go into just select the mask, paint with black or gray if you want. Let's see, B for brush. And then because it's quite a lot bigger, I want to have a bigger brush. So let's make it 100. Yeah. And then we can go in and paint some lighter areas into the terrain if you want to. I don't know if this makes sense, but whoops. The edge isn't that well refined on the sea, on the cliffside, so I think I'm gonna have to do this a bit differently. Actually, let's just make a new layer and then rim light cliff and clip it to the layers under, and then I can go in and so I'm imagining the light coming from this side. I can show you. The light sort of comes through here, hitting the tops of the layer underneath. Okay, back to this one. I could even try to find a different brush for this. Could be cool to have a softer brush some places. If you don't have a tablet, this is a bit harder to do intuitively like this. but you will always be able to find different kinds of brush packs and these things. So like this one is a bit too all over the place. Let's see. I have all my brushes here. Yeah, like a rough brush like this could actually work a bit. The size here is too big. And the point is, it's not to make this one looks realistic necessarily, but just to make some kind of variations. And that's obviously way too much. And then I can lower the opacity to whatever I feel is suitable. That doesn't look good at all. Let's bring it up again. And I can move it up a bit. Yeah. And then, because this is clipped, I can actually just move the whole thing up a bit with the arrows to make it less obvious. It's still way too much, but I think that looks better. We could actually use again, this is a bit tricky to do without drawing tablets, but you could use different kinds of tools and brushes to achieve a bit of the same. Not sure about this. It looks a bit too artificial. Maybe now I can just lower the opacity a bit. Yeah. Let's keep it and then work on more stuff. So it seems like this should actually be yellow. Adjustment layer, hue saturation, colorize, clip to the rim light. Let's see, warm white light, and then instead of having this one white, to select every pixel on this layer, hold Command and hover over the icon and press once. You will select all of them. And then instead of having this totally white, I can do it a bit yellow and then basically color the whole thing. Oops, there we go. That didn't work at all, did it? Yeah, could be okay. It's too much, but I want to keep it for a while. Let's save this one and just go back to the original. It might actually be better. Boop. Okay, so this is the original. Let's zoom out a bit. So I think part of the value structure is better. The details seem a bit more illustrative, but we're on the right track, I think. Okay, let's look into this back part of the dock. Because this red floor, it makes sense that this is quite clear red, and maybe also the one over here, but it seems to be a bit too dark. So I want to lower the... Actually, I want to make this one a bit more hazy, because this is so hazy. It doesn't make sense that this is more in color than this, in my mind. It looks a bit weird. So let's find the architecture. There we go. Might actually be the easiest to duplicate, or we could select it and then adjust it. So L for lasso tool. Yeah, this, I don't need to be this precise. I can just take too much. And then another hue saturation. Actually, this is a bit of a new way for me to work. I wouldn't normally do it this way. I would probably make parts a bit more separated. Let's take out some saturation. No, actually, that doesn't look good. I want to make it a bit lighter. It should be darker than the sea, and maybe a tiny bit more blue. I think that looks good. Gooder. There's something with the perspective here that sort of bugs me, because I feel that the whole thing is tilting down like this. Because if I'm not mistaken, the architecture is parallel here and here. And what you would have then, this is a totally different thing. This is not connected to the value structure at all. Let's look into this. Okay, let's go in the top, new layer. I just want to show you a bit about some tricks to get the perspective right. So let's find the normal dot. Yes, and then make it 5 points. So the horizon is here. You could also, if you press Command R, you will get a ruler, and you could actually pull a ruler from this side, a useful tool. And what you see here is that we have one line. If you go from this corner to this corner, and then you go from this corner and try to line up these, they should probably go more or less in the same direction, and they should hit the horizon. So let's try that again with a bit more zoomed in view. Line is U. Yeah, I always forget a shortcut for line. So this looks to be correct over here, maybe a bit down. So I pressed A for a direct selection tool, the white pen, and then I could pull just part of the line. Yeah, sure. It seems to be broken a bit. I broke it! Oh no. Let's try it again. I'm too lazy to figure this one out. U for line, there. So there's a discrepancy here. I think also we're gonna take both lines and make the stroke, okay, 5 or maybe even 10. And stroke color should be red. Okay, so now we've established that the plane of the floor they're standing on is actually tilting a bit upwards. I would like to have this line a bit down. Because this is so short, it doesn't really affect the perspective that much. But we have a much worse issue here. Because if you do the same here, this is the line for that perspective, and it never hits the horizon. So let's try to figure out the perspective a bit better on the architecture. Select the architecture layer, Command T for transform, right click, and then either you could try perspective and basically try to work with this until it sort of fits everything. One thing that could be good to remember is that we have a lot of adjustments here. So you have to make sure that you select all the layers and then press T, because Command T, because then you can use perspective, and the effects of the colors and all these things will follow along, so we don't have to redo everything. Actually, I think I'm going to do distort, because it seems to be necessary to do small adjustments to the whole thing. I want to pull it a bit out so it still has the same size. I want this line and this line and this line to converge on the horizon. That's my goal. This isn't too bad, is it? I think we're gonna commit to those changes. Let's get rid of the lines. Let's make new ones. And then from there to there. And these things aren't super necessarily accurate. This one is too high still, but I think it's gonna be fine because it's not that crucial. You see that? I think that's a lot better, especially if we get rid of this line. Yeah, seems to be better. Let's delete these lines and let's get rid of this guide. Clear guides. This one is probably a bit too high too, but I'm gonna leave it for now. See if this makes sense. Yeah, I think this looks better. Could be possible to push this one a bit down, I think. We can see if that works. Select the architecture and the adjustment layers over. Hold Shift just to select more than one. L for lasso, and then I have to move in a bit because I don't want to change the yellow line. Then distort. This is probably not going to work because I have so big areas. Let's not do it this way. Let's just use the architecture layer. And then distort, and then I can pull this one down a bit. It's so small I don't really care about the adjustments that has been made here. I don't think it matters that much. Another thing I want to do is to get the color back from the top, because I think the light will strike the top of this one quite a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, this one, the curse one doesn't really do much, so I'm gonna get rid of it. The color balance, yeah, this one is good. And then it was, well, it doesn't hurt. We can have another hue and saturation. Again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this with all hue and saturation layers because it becomes a bit chaotic to keep track of. But let's try anyway. And I'm trying to tell a story with the light here, so I'm not fussed about having the precise location. And then I could probably delete this one, I think. No? Yes? Why didn't that delete anything? Hue saturation. Let's try to increase the saturation, but then I want to do it only on the. Let's invert this. It's a bit of a mess. Delete layer mask. Layer mask. Okay, sorry, confusing. I don't like the green, so let's go back there. It's a bit too much with 100. Let's take it down. And then I will also make it a bit lighter. And then actually we can have some more saturation. Let's see. Slight adjustment. It doesn't really matter that much. I can see that now. I think I want to do the same here. I want to bring out some light in this part. And then I can actually go in here and paint. If I want to just affect this one slightly from this hue saturation that I did here, I could do this on all of it, but let me just show you. bigger, sorry. 50% gray, maybe a bit lighter actually. Nope, 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 didn't look good. Forget about it. I think this edge is a bit weird because it's sort of in the shade, but it also gets light, so it might be that it should actually be darker. Let's see. Yeah, let's try making it darker. And of course, maybe not fully black. Multiply, something like that. Yeah, because it's sort of in the shade. Okay, I think I agree with this student that this part seems a bit sort of floaty boaty. The light comes here and reflects here, so I don't know if it's going to be a shadow, but of course the sky is also quite bright, so we might actually try to put a small shadow here. When I do shadows like this, actually I do it in a bit of a super basic way. Arc shadow. I put this one to multiply, this one to, let's call it 50 as a start, and then hardness 0%, big brush, and then basically shadow. I paint. If you look at only this is the shadow, nothing fancy. Could even double it up, delete it, and then put a bit more of a core shadow in the sort of center here. I think that will, yeah, make it a bit more logical. Merge down, combine these two layers is just mark the top layer and then Command E, boop, and these ones are merged. Be a bit aware of the blending modes if you do this. One problem here you can see is that because of the way this is cut out, we get this white line, which is a bit annoying. This is probably part of this mask. This is the architecture layer. If we disable this layer mask, you see there is a white paper here, which is quite a lot lighter in value. So I want to make sure that this line is cut out fully. What I'm gonna do then is go into the architecture layer, go to the brush tool, make a brush that's quite small. Yeah, maybe like this, and then hardness 0% would be okay. And then I want it to be black. And I press once there, hold shift and press once there. That was a bit too much. A bit further out, once there, hold shift, press once more. And what happens if you press once, hold shift and press again, Photoshop will draw a straight line between those 2 points. That's what I'm doing here. And because the brush is a bit soft, it also becomes a bit transparent, which also makes it a bit easier to believe in. Okay, this was not part of the... Okay, I think I forgot the layer. Let's see. I think I deleted hue and saturation layer for this one. Let's see. No, it's just not turned on. Yeah, okay. Cool. Cool. I'm not fully convinced on this glyph. Where is the glyph? Back glyph, hue saturation. Let's try making it even darker. Actually, I sort of think that's better. This light is a bit silly still. So exclusion, I want to try a different blending mode. Could be vivid light, could be fun. Lighter color, or maybe actually screen. Oh, we can do screen. It's a bit weird here. It's okay. I also feel that the whole image is a bit bottom heavy here now, so I would like to have something over here. This is taking too much. Sorry about that. Let's put boat here. Yeah, a tanker ship. Then I have to think about perspective. I want it over quite far out because I want to emphasize the depth. Let's see. Maybe actually this could look kind of cool. Just have something in the horizon. Yeah, let's borrow this one. Screenshot, quite close to it because it's a bit busy. New, paste, I don't care. And then I'm thinking sort of a bit like this. Where's the horizon? Yeah, like that. Okay. And then we can tanker. We can probably... Can I... Nope. Can I do this? Will this be more intelligent? Yeah. Mask. Okay. And as you see, this is way too dark. I want this one to be almost not transparent, but I want it to be almost totally desaturated and bluish because I want it to match the sky basically. Again, hue saturation, option click to clip the saturation layer. It should be lighter, maybe a bit like that. It could be a bit more bluish. Could even colorize it maybe. Let's see what colors do we have. Yeah, those colors are good. It could even be lighter. Almost can't really see that it's there. And I want to flip it because it sort of, I feel it should have some kind of opposite direction. Yeah, sort of keep it a bit collected. I still feel that this is a bit too open. Maybe we should put a cliff here into the sea. Into the sea, into the sea. Cliff with waves. I guess cliff is the wrong word. Cool. Let's see. Okay, so we want something that you have to look at it from the top, a bit like this, but it's too much. I don't want it that extreme. I just want a bit of waves. Could it with this one? I don't like the colors, but let's try. Let's try this one. I also don't like that we can't see the whole thing. And I don't really like the green circle. Okay, let's do this. Thank you for image. Could that work? Maybe if we do a bit like this. Okay, let me try something. Lasso tool. Lasso. No. I think my tablet the battery might be. Okay. I think my computer might be a bit tired from trying to keep track of all the video and stuff. So I just do a rough cutout. It doesn't really matter that much. I can always adjust it. As long as I use masks, I can always adjust these cutouts. Like this. I put it maybe on the inside like this. Yeah. And I'm gonna cut away this part. And then maybe the bit of this. I try to be a bit wavy. No, press the wrong button. Like that. And maybe here a bit more. Just to get some waves and stuff. Okay, let's see how this works. And select inverse and then mask. Whoops, mask. Yeah, looks a bit silly. Actually, this one works quite well. Let's copy it. Put this one on top. Put it to normal. And then we could probably zoom into it and chip away at parts of the mask B and big, not that big. Yeah, 20, 30 maybe. Hardness 0, and then I can just feather the transitions a bit so it seems a bit more like it flows. Okay, let me explain what I'm doing here. This was probably a bit confusing. I made one copy of the cliff that I put to the blending mode screen because I think that sort of looks to be quite realistic around the color of the waves and these things. And then I made a copy of the same, and then I erase parts of it. And this is put to the blending mode normal. So this one looks basically like the image. So when they're all in, so this would be rock. This would be water around rock. This is the background. So when this one looks bad, it's because of the water. So then I have to adjust the mask of the water, and then I would prefer actually to have the hardness set to a bit more rough. Oops. And I want the hardness back to there. I could probably also lower the flow a bit to, let's say, 50, because then it's a bit easier to just adjust it a bit. I'm just trying to break up the evenness of the surface. So yeah, it sort of looks like the rocks are cut into the background, but if I turn on all the layers, it doesn't really matter. That's my point. It sort of matters, but it doesn't matter. I also think that I might actually duplicate the rock again and then put overlay on top. Soft light looks good. And again, I can go into the mask and get rid of the parts that become too dark. I just wanted to sort of double up on the brightness of the rock to make it look even more like it's getting light from the sun, the setting sun. Yeah, the last thing I want to do here is probably just add some multiply 50% and then basically just increase the contrast a couple of locations and then clip it to the layer beneath. I don't know, just seemed to be a bit okay. That looks quite good. I think I'm gonna, let's see, merge these ones, apply, merge these ones, apply. No, that didn't work. That worked. This rock could be a bit, not sure if transparent is the best. Use saturation. Boop. And make it a bit lighter and a bit less saturated. I'm not sure if this worked that well. I don't know. Distort. Yeah, we can folder it up and call it possible rock. Possible rock. Okay, so this is the new one before. This one looks a bit too sort of cut in. I'm not too happy about that, but I'm a bit lazy too. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this one. I've been at it for quite a long time. When I get to this stage, I usually save a copy. So that's Option Command S for saving a copy. And then I save a JPEG. And then this is fine. Press Enter. And then, of course, make sure it's fully, because then I have, if I mess up, I can always go back to this. Actually, another small suggestion I would make is to make this one less saturated. Let's see. Saturation. I'm just gonna, whoop. And maybe also lightness a bit. So what I did here is that I put adjustment layer on top of the background, and you can't see it now because this is the mask. And you see in this corner, you see that it's a gradient that goes from black to white and then black, which means that the black is showing, and that's the sky. The black is showing the thing underneath. I can also clip this, it doesn't really matter. The white is adjusting the hue and saturation, so it pulls minus 40% saturation. So then I can control the saturation for just the ocean, minus 40. And then the lightness is up, let's say 25, just to make it easy. What I probably also should do is make sure this is on top of this one, the sunshine, because I want that to be affected the same way. But I don't want the rest to be affected this way. So, okay, let's clip this one. Let's make a copy. And then let's make this one. Clip 2. So I just made a copy. It's not a good way to do it, but oh well, here we are. Actually, this also made it possible to decrease the contrast a bit on this, but I think that's gonna be for another day. Yeah, nice. Save a copy. Too fast. Command Option S to save a copy. JPEG. It doesn't need to be called copy. Replace yes. Enter for OK. And yeah, this is it. Before, after. Before, after. Nice. I hope that was good. It was too long. I realized that. So I might have to, I don't know how, but I might have to cut it down somehow. I think I need to have a timer for these things. So I guess the first student was lucky to get 1.5 hours of review. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to look into your work. I hope this helps you. So good luck.